Okay, awesome. Okay, Gil. So there are a lot of questions here, and I'm going to start with just a couple of easier ones.
Mhm.
Just easier in the sense of they'll be more straightforward to answer. So this one's from Philippa or Pippa. Hi, Gil. Can you describe what it is like for children going to school and their teachers at the moment? Are most schools back functioning as normal? Is there special addressing in schools of the current situation to help students? What about all the displaced students? Just there's just a few
Okay.
questions within that, but if you could just talk to that a little bit.
Okay. So almost nothing is as normal in Israel. Nothing has been as normal for the last month and a half. So and schools included. Um, we started this time of after the I don't know if the word attack is the right one, but after the let's just use it for the sake of the discussion. But after the attack of October the 7th, then we didn't have a school system for about 3 weeks. And the main problem that the school system is now facing is in areas which are even more which are further away from the areas of where the battle is taking place, from the area of Gaza. The challenge that we're facing is that a lot of the people, a lot of the teachers, a lot of the men teachers are required to be in reserves. So we have right now we have 140% of recruiting people to reserves. That means that most of the men in Israel who are at the right age, which is between the age of, let's say, 22, 23, when after they finished serving in the army, all the way to the age of 45 to 47. I even know some people who are 50 and 52 years old that are recruited to various roles. And that means that the entire market in Israel, the entire working market, I mean is suffering from a severe shortage of manpower. We talk about education. We talk about I don't know, all different kinds of companies and farm and agriculture and anything. I mean, all fields are suffering from shortage of manpower, schools included. So, for example, with my children, we have our two youngest children. They go to elementary school in a system which is primarily with women teachers. So they have most of their school hours. They're almost unaffected. But my older boys, they study in yeshiva, in which most teachers are men, and they have much less than what they should have. So we try to make up for it. I mean, in terms of parents who are available, we try to make up for it with teaching, the children, teaching students ourselves. We have volunteers coming, people who are retired teachers, and they come and volunteer with the children, with students at schools, so that they can make up for lost materials that they're suffering from. So there are all kinds of solutions. The one thing to say about the entire about what's happening in Israel right now is that everybody is a soldier in this war. Everybody does something, even from the youngest children to the eldest people. Everybody's doing something. Everybody, really. So despite the fact that many of the men are in the battlefield, still the people left behind, they're taking the workload on themselves, and that's how we manage.
Mm. There's a question from Ian. With so many reservists called up, it must have a huge impact on the economy. Quickly taken out of their full-time jobs, etc., to do the business, continue to pay them, or how do they support their families? Who would cover their normal workload? Well, okay, you've answered that a little bit.
And Okay, so that question is it's very easy to answer. I mean, the here we need to make a distinction. The way that the state does this is that the state is differentiating between people who are self-employed and people who are hired employees. People who are hired in a company or organization or in anything like that, they still get paid for their work, even though they're not there doing the work. They still get paid from their bosses, and the government pays the boss. Okay, the government gives the money to the boss. The boss, of course, he needs to hand over, some forms and some things in order to show that he has employees in the battlefield who are recruited, and he continues to pay regular salary to his employees, and he gets that money from the government. So clearly, the government is losing here because the government now needs to pay all the paychecks for everybody, but the work is not done. So there is less income to companies, and that means that less taxes and etc. So, but that's how the soldiers keep providing for their families. And people who are self-employed, they the state takes the average income, let's say in this trimester, like 3 months, and compares it with last year in case the business was working, or with the previous or the previous months in the same tax year, and the government makes up for any losses.
Right.
So for example, in my business, and I teach Hebrew for a living. In my business, I was fully booked to the end of December with people coming from various countries to study here, and I was supposed to teach them along with my staff of teachers. And because they couldn't come, then we had to cancel. We had to cancel quite a bit from the workload, because if somebody lives in California, then I can't necessarily teach him online because we have 10-hour time difference, and it's not always it can't always work. So in that case, I mean, I would have to file all the forms that I can, and to show that I suffered, let's say, from losses of any kind, and the government makes up for it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We pray for you with that, Gil.
Well, I mean, on a personal level, I mean, I mean, also during COVID time, I mean, we never took, my wife and I, we never took from the government anything. I mean, in terms of losses, I mean, not even during COVID time, and not even during this time, because I mean, we can manage. I mean, my wife she has her work and I have mine, and we try to be as creative as we can in order to make it work, so that we don't have to take anything from the state, especially not in a time like this.
Awesome. Okay, Gil, we're going to move to something a bit more sort of heavy question in the sense. This is Carol sent this, and it's on behalf of Rick. He would like to hear the Jewish perspective on why there is anti-Semitism.
Wow.
Exactly. I thought I'd give you the big one.
You weren't kidding when you said
No,
serious.
I wasn't.
No, but I think I read the question, and I think this question it falls back to even a more basic question. When we think about we can ask questions like, why is there evil in the world? I mean, why couldn't God just make everything to be perfect the way we see what perfect is? Why were we created with the ability, for example, to fall into sin? Why aren't we like the angels, that we are just being sent off on our way, and we don't have an ability to choose, and therefore there is no sin, and therefore everything is perfect and everything is great? I mean, why isn't it like that? Right? Why is there a darkness, next to light? Why isn't it just 100% infinite light? And we can all just exist in that light, and everything will be so amazing. Why are there illnesses and difficulties, and why are there tests that we are being given? I mean, Abraham was told, go to the land that I will show you. Why did he have to go all the way and then come to find that there is famine in the land, and then he needs to go down to Egypt? I mean, why couldn't it be just perfect? Why couldn't Joshua walk, enter into the land with the children of Israel, and all the nations, all the 7 nations who lived here, they would just, go away, and they would say, oh, by all means, please come in, and we're just going to go and find ourselves a different corner on the face of the earth, and no blood would be shed, and why all those things? And I think that once, this world was created as a place for us to sanctify the Lord's name. This place it was created for that. Okay, I mean, otherwise, up in the heavens, the angels can say, holy, 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 right? As we know from the vision, but what ability do they actually have to choose and sanctify God by making those choices. They can't choose. Ezekiel prophesied about the heavenly beings being with a straight leg. They move. They don't choose. They can't turn right or left. They can't stop. They are being sent in a certain direction, and they have to go in that direction. They execute God's will, but can they choose to do that? We have the ability to choose. And that puts us in a higher place. And it means that this world was created for us as human beings, so that we will be able to sanctify God in a way that he cannot be sanctified up in the heavens. Going back to the question of why is there anti-Semitism? I mean, God made a choice 3,800 years ago. He made a choice of Abraham, so that Abraham will serve him in a way that nobody else could in that time. I mean, that humanity has been existed at that point 2,000 years already, from Adam all the way to Abraham through Noah, and it didn't work. We can see that in the first 11 chapters of Genesis. And then God made a choice of Abraham. And ever since that he made that choice, or with any other choice that God is making for us as human beings, we have the ability to either respect it and act by it and follow it, or we can fight it. And anti-Semitism, I think is a representation of that. God made a choice of Abraham, and he made a choice in his descendants to come to be a blessing to all the families of the earth. As human beings, as humanity, and I'm including the Jewish people as well in this, we need to deal with that choice, especially in our time. In our time, you can't talk about differences between people. We're all the same, right? I mean, we're all the same, and we're all equal, and we're all... No, we're not saying that there are differences in terms of who is better and who is not, but we're not the same. We were not created the same. You are Ruth and I am Gilad. And if I take your violin and try to play, it probably won't work the way that it will when you take it. And vice versa, when you try to do things that I'm doing. We are not the same, and we were created for different purposes as individuals and also as nations and as peoples, and we have to honor God's choices. Anti-Semitism is a representation of us human beings trying to go against the will of God. And I'm including the Jewish people inside of that as well. I know people, in modern time, and I know people here living here in this country. I'm not sure what they would say in this time right now, but I could definitely hear it. People saying, I don't want to be any different than anyone else. I just want to be like everybody else. I don't want to be different. I am not different. I'm just like the others. That in itself, I think, also a form of anti-Semitism. Okay, it's not anti-Semitism in terms of wanting to eradicate or annihilate the Jewish people, but it's definitely anti-Semitism in the sense that it's fighting against the choice that God made 3,800 years ago. And I think humanity it has been learned how to live that choice. Humanity, I'm not just saying the nations, but I'm also including us in that as well. We've been learning how to live with that choice. And every time we try as human beings, Jews and non-Jews, when we try to walk away from that choice, we will be reminded that this choice is still existing. We will be reminded this way or another, and we are asked again and again in our short lifetime to show what is it that we're choosing. Are we choosing to honor the choice that God made, or are we choosing to go against it and decide that we know better?
Okay, I'm just going to add a question which really fits very well here. This is a question from Janice. I recently read a quote from the Palestinian perspective that said, "There are no chosen people, there are just people." As a Christian, I have no struggle with the concept of the Jewish people belonging to God as his chosen ones. But when there is no common point of reference, say as a Palestinian, how can they view Jews as chosen or even special, since they worship a different God and their guide is the Quran? Would the very concept of being chosen or set apart come across as arrogance?
Well, I think this question, it goes back to, how do we even talk about anything which we find in God's word that describes what he is like and what he wants from us, and what is the destiny, the destiny of this world, and what is redemption about? How do we explain all of those things included in the Bible to someone who doesn't believe in the Bible? Okay, that he chooses to turn, like, to look the other way whenever he sees a Bible. How do you do that? Well, it takes a different kind of language. It takes a different kind of relationship, so like to make it accessible. Now, we're not doing it in order to convert anybody. I mean, in Judaism, there is no desire to make anybody convert into Judaism. On the contrary, when somebody comes to a Jewish court, let's say religious court, and he says, "I would like to convert," they have to reject him 3 times to see if he really means it, to see that he's serious, and so they reject him. We're not proactive about it. It's not about believing and holding on to what we believe God gave to the Jewish people to keep, but the concept of God being the maker of the world, and God owning this world and owning all of our lives and making choices and leading. I think that you don't have to be. I mean, you only need to listen just a little bit to see that things included written in the Bible, they have been fulfilled all throughout the centuries. I mean, it's again and again and again. It's like a circle. It's like it's a wheel spinning. It's turning around and around and around. You could explain it, but can we force someone to make that choice of actually hearing out and listen to who is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? We can't really do that. That's up to them. I mean, information is accessible. Relationship is definitely necessary. Anybody who believes in the Bible becomes an ambassador of that Bible, to that extent that we've explained. But we can't force it upon anyone. And if somebody is, I don't know, he believes in Hinduism or in any other thing, then of course it's, we can only make it. There's only so much that we can do. We can only open a door. Whether the person is going to walk in through that door or not, that depends on him. That's what he was created for. He was created to make that choice. We're there to maybe provide the infrastructure, but the choice is completely the person's.
Right. Well, okay. Well, so I think this next question really comes into this same thing. This is from Julie. It says, Shalom, I have a friend who is not standing with Israel. I am 100%. She said that the Palestinian prisoners that Israel has imprisoned include women and children. Is this true?
Yes, of course it's true. Those who are held in Israeli prisons are people who committed terror attacks. The youngest one is 14 years old. And when I mean a 14-year-old committing terror attack, it means that he took a knife and he went to stab soldiers in Jerusalem. Okay, and he managed to do that because he came behind them, and they were, of course, they felt compassionate for him that he was a child, and they didn't stop him on time, and he managed to stab a soldier in his neck. Okay, that's a 14-year-old. So yes, there are women and children in Israeli prisons, not because they are women and children, because they committed terror. And of course, they're not kept in the same places. There are of course sections for women, and there are sections for minors, and there are sections for adults, etc., etc. But yes, they are held in Israeli prisons, just as they would be held in any other country's prison in case they tried to murder someone.
Okay, now the second part of this question, I think I probably have to answer. It says, I am for Israel and would like to see an end to Hamas. How, as a Christian, can I be in the awkward middle ground of loving my enemies, Hamas? And I mean, I think this is probably the question that many, many Christians, myself included, struggle with. And in the sense of struggling with, what I mean is you have to make a choice. And it's what we've been talking about, making a choice. And so you make a choice. Am I believing God's word? Am I believing what he says? Or am I going to put my sort of spin on it compared to how society is now, and how could you do all these terrible things? And surely God wouldn't send an army in to kill everybody and wipe out the Amalekites, for instance. And the actual reality is, yes, he would. And so do I somehow push that aside and say that it's well, that's a bit old-fashioned, and that was so many thousands of years ago. And I've made the decision for myself that I'm going to stand on the side of God's word, and even when I don't understand it entirely. So that's the best answer I can give, because we clearly are told to love our enemies. Do you have any ideas on that, Gil, about loving your enemies?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts about that. I don't want to step into a place where it's actually not my place. I mean we don't I know that in the New Testament I know about there is something about turning the other cheek, right? If I remember correctly from things that you've been telling me. It's not like, I mean, when we read the Old Testament, when we read Torah mainly, we don't see it there. I mean, we see that there are cases where we are asked to fight a war which is ruthless, which is lacking any kind of mercy, which is not easy. I mean, when we read in Exodus about the war that against the Amalekites, and later in Deuteronomy, we see that the Amalekites, for example, and I'm not saying that Hamas is Amalek, and I'm not saying that the people in Gaza are Amalek, and I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that the spirit of Amalek is a spirit that came to fight against the faith, against believing in God. There was a newborn nation coming out of Egypt with all those miracles, and experiencing, bringing news to the world about believing in one God, and that God he's right here, and he's working in our midst, etc., etc. And they came to cool us down. It says in Deuteronomy, where it talks about the Amalekites, it says that the Amalekites came. I think that in English the translation is they happened on you, or they happened to come across you, or something like that, when you were, they came to attack you on your rear ranks, etc. But in Hebrew, it comes. The meaning is that they came to cool you down, right? You were burning with this flame, this fire of faith, and making the world know that the Lord, who created the heavens and the earth, has now released His people, and a new season is coming to the world, and they came to cool you down. They came to fight against it, to show you, it's not as amazing as you think, and we're going to show you that we're going to bring you back to reality, so to speak. And when we have to fight against it, we really do. There is nothing about loving your enemies when it comes to that.
Right.
Okay, nothing about that. There is nothing about. I mean, King Solomon, he prophesied and he said there is time for everything. Right? There is time to plant, and there is time to uproot, and there is time to build, and there is time to destroy, and there is time for to love, and there is time to hate. There is time for war, and there is time for peace. And you have to be sensitive enough and hear the word of God, with the highest sensitivity, to know what is the right time right now. What does He want from us? And after, October the 7th was really like the final straw. But that Israel has been responding to our enemies on the other side with a lot of patience. Israel has had, like no other country could have done it, but Israel has had tens of thousands of rockets being launched towards civil population, schools and hospitals and businesses and shopping centers ever since 2005. August 2005, Israel gave as a gesture, a decent amount of the Gaza Strip to the Palestinians, and the Palestinians said, "Yeah, we're going to use this territory to build universities and to build hospitals and to better the quality of life in Gaza, etc., etc." And Israel evacuated 8,000 of its own citizens from the north of the Gaza Strip, in order to show a gesture of goodwill to the Palestinians in Gaza, and all we got from those places were terror nests. And Israel has been very patient about it. Very, very, very patient. I don't think any other country would be that patient with tens of thousands of rockets being launched, over the years, or towards its population. And so there is time to be patient, but there is also time to fight. And I think October the 7th showed us exactly where that line goes.
Gil, there are two questions here. One is a comment and one is more. They go together. Anyway, this one's from Annika, and she says, "My question is this. It's wonderful that Israel has become united again as it faces the enemy after what happened on 7th of October. But the fact that it is strengthening the hand of the enemy by making a truce rather than by calling upon God, who is holy and does not compromise, the nation will yet be divided. Because of the miracles, we are encouraged to believe that God is helping, but what good can come out of negotiating with the enemy?"
Okay, that's okay. I must say that in this matter there is no one answer. I mean, and we could say that we could analyze it the way that the person asking it's Annika, right? I think that the way that Annika puts it, I mean, that's one way to look at it. I mean, you can't negotiate with the enemy. You have to go with all your strength and to get those hostages out and to just do it and go all the way with it. And at the same time, one must say, we have the sanctity of life also in hand. I mean, and we have responsibility towards our 240 civilians, amongst which we have elderly people and children and babies and women and people who are not soldiers at all. I mean, they shouldn't be caught up in that situation like that. And we have responsibility for them. The truth is that the deal that Israel has done with Hamas is a very bad deal. We can't even call it a deal. It's blackmail. It's an emotional blackmail. It's blackmail of the worst kind existing. It's a very bad deal, but nobody can refuse that deal. And Hamas knows that. But no Jewish person would refuse to that deal. Hamas knows that Jewish people are very, very, and I stand behind my words, very merciful. We do not like to fight. We do not want to fight. We would rather everything to be in peace and harmony. We have been praying for the house of God to be rebuilt for the last 2,000 years. The house of the Lord is a house of peace. In the house of the Lord, no iron, no metal was could be used in order to build it, because metal is material which is used. Iron is a material which is used for war, for swords, for bloodshed. King David was not able to build the house of the Lord. It had to be Solomon, his son, for his name is Shlomo, coming from the word shalom. This blood runs in our veins. This is our DNA. We do not want to fight. If we need to fight, we shall fight. And God is a God of peace. But when spirits of the enemy are blowing so severely, then we will fight back. So no Jewish person could refuse that deal because of our merciful hearts, and our enemies know this. So technically, practically speaking, negotiating with the enemy, definitely not. Doing it while he is holding a 9 months old baby, saying, either negotiate with me or you lose this baby. No one can refuse to that. And you know what? In a way, I am proud to be part of a nation which cannot refuse to that. Even in a way, I think that the deal could be better for Israel. Could be better. There are all sorts of things that the Israeli government could demand in this kind of a deal, which they didn't, and I feel sorry that they didn't. But refusing to any number of hostages coming back and reuniting with their families and taking them out of danger, taking them out of the hands of those animals holding them, then we have to do it. I mean, anybody saying, you know, we don't need to negotiate, and you know, if this is the sacrifice that we need to make, so be it. I don't think that person would say it if it was his own daughter being held by Hamas, or his son, or his brother, or mother, or father. It's we can't, you know, we can't. Our hearts, you know, our compassion doesn't let us go to that place. So that's the situation, and that's another test, by the way. And I don't think, and I wouldn't overgeneralize it by saying that instead of listening to what God has to say, we decided to negotiate with the enemy. I don't think that's, I wouldn't say that's the case. I think we need to be very careful with putting things, with presenting things with 100% certainty. You know, I mean, it could also be the case that this is a test for us. I mean, this is a test for us to bring back the hostages, whatever the cost may be, and God will fill in the rest afterwards. We could also say that. I mean, after all these months of social rift that we've been suffering from, and I'm sure that you guys could hear about it on the news, but it's been ever since the month of March all the way to October. We've been suffering from a severe rift in our society. Severe. Maybe this is the time to bring us together and fight for one another and decide, yes, we're going to do this for one another. We're going to bring back these people, and we're going to stand as one organism. One body would not just give up an arm or a leg and just continue to do whatever and just say, you know, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. We could say that God is putting us in that situation to test us, to test our unity, to test our mutual guarantee. And then as we, you know, succeeding in that test, he will fill in the rest afterwards. And the deal is definitely bad, but could we refuse it? No.
Right. And in light of that too, I mean, there's the sense in which our prayer can now be, you know, that God will, in a sense, answer and honor the mercy with his miracles. I mean, that we'll see how he will step in. It's really hard. There's another question that's kind of mixed in with all of this kind of sentiment, but so on October 7th, most countries stood solidly behind Israel. But there are people now wondering, has Israel gone beyond just defending itself? How do you answer that?
You know, we hear our enemies say out loud, they cried with no shame. They say they want one state from the river to the sea, and that state is not the state of Israel. Okay, now what does that mean? What does that entail? That entails clearly they want us gone, better, dead, underground, all buried, better. If they can't do it like that, let's bring some boats and send them back to Europe or the Middle East or from wherever they came from. They don't want us here. I mean, you have Iran declaring that it wants to annihilate Israel, wants to annihilate the Zionist enemy. They say it out loud. The October the 7th was just a symptom of that. I mean, this is existential. This is not anything that Israel cannot now, thank God, our leaders understand it. We cannot live with this kind of enemy on the other side of the border. We cannot let it, and I will say even more than that. The war that we are now fighting is not uniquely our own. It's relevant to the entire world. The entire world is looking at this war, and it is relevant for the rest of the world as well. These spirits of hatred and enmity towards other people and lack of solidarity, and it's everywhere. It's everywhere, and everybody knows what it is, and it's okay to name the child to call the child by name. It's okay to do that. I am not saying for a minute that all people in Gaza are like Hamas, are having this Hamas agenda. I'm not saying that. I know some Palestinians, not from Gaza, but from here where I live in Samaria. I know some Palestinians who say that Israel is actually the best thing that has ever happened to them. Because before Israel existed, they had no work. I mean, their fathers, they had no work. There was no economy. Nothing was going on. They had really nothing, and at least now they have places to work. They would like to get up in the morning. They would like to get their working permit and go to work in Israel, and then return to their homes, to their families, and just give better future to their children. And they would much prefer to be Israeli Arabs with Israeli citizenship than being Palestinians. But they can't say it. They can't say it out loud where they live because they live under dictatorship.
Right.
And Israel is not even. I mean, forget about what you're seeing on the news. Israel is not doing entirely what it needs to do because of its mercy towards the lives of civil population, people who are uninvolved, women and children, and people at the hospital. You know what? Do you know that when the Israeli soldiers went to the famous Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza, I don't know if the media showed it where you guys live, but the soldiers came with medical supplies, with food and water and gasoline and stuff for the engines, for the generators to work, and they came with Israeli doctors. Israeli doctors went with the soldiers. Do you know how dangerous that is? They went with the soldiers, doctors. They're not warriors. They went with the soldiers, along with interpreters, Arab-speaking interpreters, Israeli Arab-speaking interpreters, so that they will be able to take over the medical charts and the treatments that the doctors in Al-Shifa hospital had to give to their patients, so that the patients would still be treated while the IDF will be able to take the Al-Shifa doctors and interrogate them about what happened there on October the 7th. And good thing that they did it, because when they took the Al-Shifa staff of doctors, they found Hamas people in disguise. They put on the white robe and the stethoscope, and they pretended to be doctors, but they were Hamas people. And the IDF they were able to show it. And they interrogated the doctors, and the doctors said in the end, yes, hostages came to they were brought to Al-Shifa hospitals, and military goods that Hamas had stolen from military bases in Israel, it was brought to Al-Shifa hospital. And yes, there are tunnels, and yes, there is a lot of ammunition here in this hospital, and the IDF was able to show that this was actually a parallel terror nest, along with it being a hospital. Israel is super humanitarian in this war. No other country would do that. No other country would put the lives of their own soldiers at risk. These are our children. My son is due to go to the army next year, and I know that the government will put his life in danger because it wants to defend the lives of others. And I know that Israel is trying to do it in the most humanitarian way. But of course, different news channels and media, they have their own agenda, and they would like people to see what they would like them to see, which is not the truth. Wow. And that goes back to the question about anti-Semitism at the beginning. We have a question here from God. Are you going to honor my choices or not?
Or not? You mentioned about knowing Palestinians or Israeli Arabs in the area of Judea, Samaria, and the question we had here from Diana was, would it be possible for the communities in Judea, Samaria to film more interviews with Jewish and Arab Israelis together? But judging from what you've just said about how the Arabs they're not free to be able to speak.
They are completely not free. They're completely not free. If they are ever suspected to cooperate or do anything that which could be considered as walking alongside Israel, they are doomed. Their families are doomed. Their children are doomed. They wouldn't risk it. They know who rules over them, and
Right.
they would never do it. And apart from the fact that right now the relationship, it's very, very sensitive.
Imagine.
It's very delicate right now. Israelis, they lost a bit of faith that they've had in their Palestinian neighbors, and vice versa. And to be frank, the ones to really lose from it all are the Palestinians, because the Palestinians work for Israeli companies. They work for factories and in various places in the West Bank, factories owned by Israelis, hiring Palestinians, giving them jobs. And whenever, I don't know, the Western countries, when they talk about confiscating goods that come from the West Bank, they are so I'm sorry to say, but it's so foolish, because the ones that they are really hurting are those Palestinians they pretend to defend so much, because they're going to lose their jobs because goods are being confiscated in Western countries.
Right. Wow. Gil, there are just two more things to talk about here. One is about the hostages, and the other is we do want to hear some stories before we finish. But Alison has some questions about the hostages. I wonder how was their captivity? Where were those there? Were they still fed, medically looked after? Where were they kept? Do we know? Do we know anything about where they
Yeah,
were?
of course, we know. We've already got back 50 people, and most of them were already questioned by the authorities, and so we do know. In terms of how much they were fed, it wasn't good. It wasn't good nutrition. People came a lot skinnier than they were. They talk about about between 10 to 15 kilograms less in 6 weeks. Okay, which is a lot. I mean, in terms of I don't know, in pounds, that should be something like between 22 to 37 kilograms less, pounds less. Okay, in 6 weeks, I think. Am I doing the right math here?
I think you did it the wrong way around, but that's okay.
No, I think it is 10 kilos is about 22 pounds. In any case, they were definitely they were malnourished. I don't think we don't know whether they were malnourished because they wanted to torment them, or maybe because they just didn't have enough food for them because of the situation in Gaza. So I mean, we can't really know. Most of them were held together. They were taken in tunnels to an open space underground, and most of them, they say that they were held together. I mean, they were not alone. Nobody was kept by himself. They were kept in large groups. We don't know exactly how many, but how many in a group. But they said that the 50 that now came back, they said like that they were held together. So in that regards, nothing. They were injured on October the 7th, but nobody said anything about them being beaten, while being in being held there, or tormented in this way or another. They of course the whole situation is unpleasant. That's an understatement, but the whole situation that could be tormenting in its own. But they didn't add anything to it, at least not according to what they've been saying up until now.
Right. That's mostly women and children. So
that came back, but we still don't know what. Yes, these are the stories that we've been getting from the ones that came back, mostly women and children. Amongst the 240, of course, there are also men. And some of them, of course, are soldiers who were taken from the military bases which Hamas attacked. So we don't know what their version is going to be.
Okay, Gil, this is so helpful, and I think there's probably a zillion other questions, but the one thing we don't get in the news, and we only do if we're sort of on social media where people are reporting things or it's coming in. Tell us some of the stories, the most up to date ones you got, because we've probably heard some of the older ones. But how God is intervening,
There
angels,
is
and
so much. There is so much. I mean, just the one from today. Okay, the one from today. Maybe I can find a picture so that you guys can see it. Ruth, I'm going to send you a picture, and if you want, you can.
where are you
Okay,
sending it?
I'll send it to you on WhatsApp, and you can just upload it to the chat. Okay, I'll just tell the story, and you can just upload it. So this is from today, that we got this today. A soldier said that amongst the ruins, that after they bombed areas in Gaza where terrorists were hidden, one of the soldiers found amongst the ruins a little image of tin of it's with the letter a tin of oil with the letter Shin on it, which represents the name Shaddai. And of course, finding it just a week and a half before the holiday the celebrations about of Hanukkah, that's very symbolic. And that soldier said that when he found it amongst the ruins, I mean, because we do know that Gaza had of course a lot of Jewish settlers there, up until 2005, and even before that. And they said that they're just finding that little sign, now just a week before Hanukkah, and amongst all the ruins, for them that was a sign that they were doing the right thing. That came in today, and Ruth can maybe post it in the chat. You can see the image which was found there. That's one. Just before that, we got we got a story and of course an image to support that of a soldier who was fighting with a ceramic vest, of course, and in his ceramic vest there was a little book of Psalms that he basically placed, in the upper pocket in his ceramic vest, and he was shot. The soldier got shot, but and he could show that the bullet hit the book of Psalms that he was carrying with him, and it didn't even hit the ceramic vest. It didn't even get to the ceramic vest. Now, it's a little book of Psalms. I mean, it's not something that can protect anyone from a bullet, let's say, but the book of Psalms just stopped the bullet from even getting to the ceramic vest. Okay, we can really see there is an image, and I think I posted it somewhere, maybe in our WhatsApp group. There is a picture of that book of Psalms. Whoever wants can send me an email, and I can send it. I can send him the picture with the bullet, like it just inside the book. And it's not the first time that we get that kind of message. When when the houses were burned in all the kibbutz places around Gaza on October the 7th, in one of the houses, which got completely burnt, completely. The children of the lady who lived in that house, of course, she died. The children of that lady, they came to the house and they filmed it. They came to the house to see whether they could save something, like a souvenir and something from the house. But the house is completely, it's like a pile of ash. The only thing they managed to find were two books of Psalms that were placed in a drawer next to the bed. The entire drawer unit is burnt. The entire drawer is everything inside of it is burnt, apart from the two books of Psalms being in all the flames, but they are like clean and as if like just like new. Like the flames couldn't touch it, and they found it, and it was all filmed and videotaped, and of course it was sent to be shared. Same thing happened with the sukkah.
Yeah, I was going to just ask about that.
You know that it was. I mean, the October the 7th was the last day of Feast of Tabernacles. there was a house in Kibbutz Be'eri. Maybe you've heard about it on the news. That Kibbutz Be'eri suffered from the worst kind of atrocities that happened on that vicious attack, and there was a woman who lives in Kibbutz Be'eri. She founded a synagogue. Okay, so she established a synagogue in the community. It's not a religious community at all, but she decided years ago that she wants to have a synagogue there. She's not a religious woman, but she loves, but she has the feel, for the word of God. And she said, I just felt that it's important. And that lady, she had a sukkah, a tabernacle, just outside her, like in her little garden in the kibbutz. And when the attack started, she was in the bomb shelter inside the house, and the entire house was in flames. The entire house, because that's what the attackers did. They set the house on fire so that the people would get out of the bomb shelters. Either they would suffocate inside, or they would get out through the window, and they will be able to kill them on the spot. And the lady was there in the bomb shelter, and she was feeling that the house is all burning, and when she was freed by the soldiers, she survived the attack. When she was freed by the soldiers and she filmed it, she could show that her entire house is black and burnt to the ground, but the tabernacle standing right next to it was left untouched. The flames couldn't touch it. Now, a tabernacle is something very frail. It's something very flammable, right? It's just fabric and paper and paper decorations. She filmed it, and you could even see that even the paper decorations were kept untouched, intact, completely. Same thing happened with rockets. That a lot of rockets were launched. At the beginning of the war, towards cities around Gaza. And in one of the cities called Netivot, you could actually see that, a rocket that fell in a parking lot and destroyed all the cars there and destroyed, windows, in the building. It's a very high building, like 10 stories building. And you can see cracks in the windows all the way up to the 4th floor. It was a big explosion. But just a meter away from the explosion, there were 2 tabernacles standing, and both of them were left unharmed by the explosions. Cars got exploded and smashed, but the tabernacles were left untouched. A friend of mine who lives here in the community, he's a paramedic, and he was telling us on Shabbat. He was telling us about his friend. They were in Gaza, of course, and he said that his friend was shot as they were there, and he said the bullet came in through one side of his neck and went out from the other side of his neck. Okay, and he said I was standing right next to him, and when you suffer such injury, you don't survive that. You have the main arteries here, you have the windpipe here. The bullet coming in from one side of the neck to the other and coming out from the other side, you can't survive that. And that he said, I thought that we've lost him. But then when I saw that he was still breathing and responding, I said I did what I could, and I immediately called the helicopter to come and rescue that person and take him to the hospital. He went to the hospital. They put him in surgery, but then they pulled him out from surgery and they said, "There's nothing wrong with you." Everything is nothing. It's like, we see the hole on one side and we see the hole on the other side. But it's like there is no link between the holes. Nothing is touched. Everything is in place. It's just a scratch it's just a scratch from either side, but not more than that. And he was released from the hospital on that day.
Wow.
These kinds of things that are happening daily. It's not something that happens. It's like miracles happening by the hour. Yeah. By the hour here, and now with social media, and everybody's carrying a camera with him. Everything is it's like this is what this generation was designed for, so that we will be able to report those miracles in such way and to give it validity and to validate it exactly. And people are posting it with their names and addresses and everything, so that people would know that it's real. It's not fake, or anything, if you want, look me up on Facebook, look me up on Instagram, look me up in social media, and you can ask me the question and I'll tell you. It's really amazing. It's I know it's hard to say, but it's an amazing time. Despite it all, it's a miraculous time. We see those miracles. We thank for those miracles, and you know, we take it as a reinforcement, as an encouragement that we should keep going with this. We should keep going with this. I mean, God wants his enemies wiped out, and we don't, as believers of God, we don't need to apologize saying that, because while we waste our breath apologizing for it, the enemy is using that hesitation to keep attacking. So, and we're not referring it to a group of, we say enemies of God. Enemies of God. It's okay to fight against the enemies of God. We were created for it. Anyone who believes in God. So
wonderful. Gil, thank you so much. I mean, we really thank you for this. And
thank you guys. If there is if anybody feels that there is any need, you can just write to us to the email address that you know that we have, and we can maybe organize another one like this with more questions.
If you want to come back on and say bye-bye, you can just put your video on, but we're going to close it right now. And Gil, you're going to be guarding tonight, right?
Yes, in 10 minutes from now. Yes.
We pray for you always.
Thank you, guys.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate
God
it.
bless
Thank
you.
you.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you. Protect you.
God bless you.
Amazing.
Bye-bye.
Praise God.
Stand with Israel. Thank you.
Shalom.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bless you.
Shalom. Thank you, Gil.
Shalom, Gil. Thank you.
Israel, hi.
I'm Israel.
Hi.
Bye, Jill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bless you. Thank you.
Bye.
Wow.
Thank you.